about a eulogy for Katherine Johnson.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. So we had a famous person pass on, actually announced in the last week or so. And in all honesty, I hadn't known that much about her until I started taking a look because it caught my attention. And it turns out she was a pretty incredible person. Her name was Katherine Johnson, okay? And she was a black woman who worked for NASA. It shouldn't be that big of a deal that she's a black woman. But the fact that she was a woman working for NASA and the fact that she was black opened up all sorts of doors. She was the first in a lot of different ways. She was born on August 26th, 1918. A really, really long time ago. Her skill was that she was a mathematician. She loved math. And even better than that, she was really good at it. What did she do during her life? She did calculation of orbital mechanics that were critical to the success of NASA's programs. You know, these days we think, yeah, just sit down and whip up a computer and have the computer answer all your questions. And that's true, that is what we do. But we need to remember back in the 40s and 50s, we didn't have computers. And if you wanted to do something and you wanted to do it accurately, somebody had to sit down and work out the math. And Katherine Johnson was that person. She did the calculation of orbital mechanics that were critical to the success of the first and subsequent U.S. created space flights. She worked for NASA. Not only did she work for NASA, and this is something for me, somebody who flits between job and job, I was very impressed. She worked for NASA for 35 years. So it was an incredibly long time. She mastered complex manual calculations. So we're not talking addition and subtraction here. We're talking the whole shebang is what she had the ability to do. She pioneered the uses of computers at NASA, which I thought was actually very cool. She's a mathematician. Her skill set is that she can do math by hands, but she wasn't fearful of computers. And in fact, she understood the value of computers, and she encouraged NASA to use more computers, which I thought was actually very, very impressive, considering that computers sort of replaced the type of job that she was doing. She pioneered the use of computers to do math. While she was at NASA, she did a number of different things. She calculated trajectories, she calculated launch windows, and emergency return paths. And we often don't think about emergency return paths, but especially in the world of NASA, if something goes wrong on a mission, if we all think about famous movies, there was one mission, Apollo 13, where things went horribly wrong and they had to figure out how to get back to Earth. It was her calculations that allowed them to do that. She calculated flights that were used by Alan Shepard, who was the first man into space from the US side, and John Glenn, who was the first man, I believe, to orbit the Earth. Her calculations were essential to the starting of the space shuttle program. We sort of forget the space shuttle program, I think, started early 70s when they started working on that. In 2015, President Obama awarded her a Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2016, she got the Silver Snoopy Award awarded to her by an astronaut. In 2016, a major Hollywood film called Hidden Figures came out. And that was a movie in which they talked about the critical role that this collection, I believe they were all black women, played for NASA in the early days. And in 2019, she received a Congressional Gold Medal. Arguably, she got every award that a citizen can get at this point in time. She was born in West Virginia. Now, she went to a school, but because of the time that she was going to school, 30s, probably 1930s, early 1940s, in West Virginia, in the county in which she lived, blacks were only educated through 8th grade. Her parents realized at an early age that she had a real skill for math, and so they moved to a neighboring county so that she could go to high school. She graduated from high school when she was 14, which is pretty darn impressive. She then went on to college, and while she was at college, she took every single math class offered by the college. And in fact, the college started to offer additional math classes just for her. She then graduated at 18, and she graduated summa cum laude, and she had degrees in both math and French. When she got out of college, she got the best job she could, so she got some teaching jobs right off the bat. Eventually, because of something that somebody said at a family party, she discovered that there was a job at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA. Remember, NASA doesn't exist yet. So she went to work for them. She got assigned to an all-male flight research team, and they discovered she was the best one when it came to analytical geometry. They said, oh man, you're on the team. Okay? She had been in a pool of mathematicians. No longer. She was part of the team from that day forward. In 1958, NASA took over what the NACA had been doing, and for the next 35 years, she worked on spacecraft controls branch, where she spent her time verifying the numbers that computers produced. Something that I found to be sort of amazing was that John Glenn refused to fly unless the numbers had been verified by Katherine Johnson. I think that's pretty darn impressive. She had a fabulous life. She was very, very successful. She passed on just the other day, but sort of a final gesture of just how incredible she was, she lived to be 101 years old. Mr. Toastmaster.
Jim, thank you for an extremely informative speech.